What I'm calling option one: Obama good, Romney bad. Those are really the impact scenarios that somebody could claim. They could just claim that Obama winning would be a good idea in itself, and claim a specific scenario for that. On the other hand, they could just claim that a Romney presidency in itself would be bad, and claim different scenarios there. Does that make sense, everyone? Option two: is Obama bad, Romney good? Exact opposite, right? The A subpoint is the uniqueness. Romney will win now. B is the plan actually helps Obama or hurts Romney. And then Obama is bad and Romney is good. Does that make sense to everyone? It's kind of the opposite direction. The claim is that in terms of what the affirmative does is really how does it impact the election? Does it sway it one way or the other? Does it specifically resonate with specific target groups or specific states or something of that nature? What I wanted to do is make sure there was an understanding right now of what kind of in the most simplified form what this elections dissad can claim. And so you could, at any point in time, hear either of these disadvantages. Right? So be careful when you are running the disadvantage or when you are debating the disadvantage, because some of you could just call it elections, and you could easily just make the assumption that it's one way or the other, and then totally answer the dissad incorrectly. Does that make sense to everyone? So it should be the very first question that you should ask if it's not readily apparent to you which way or direction the disadvantage is going. You may just want to go ahead and ask whether or not it is a Obama bad, Obama good type of disadvantage. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of the strengths of this disadvantage. Obviously, it only comes up every 4 years during the presidential election. There is lots of updated evidence, right? So every day there are polls. Every day there are issues that could come up that could affect the election. Every day there are numerous different current events that could impact the election. So it's good in that you will always have timely evidence. You'll always have the ability to post-date what the evidence that your opponent is reading. The second thing is that everything is compartmentalized, making it easy for the negative to extend. Right? So it's really easy to just say on the uniqueness debate, our claim is that Obama is going to win now, and then answer the dissad kind of on the line by line in that kind of compartment or grouping of arguments. The same thing with the link and with the impact. It's very easy to just kind of draw a line and understand what level of the disadvantage that you are addressing, whether or not it's for the affirmative or the negative. And you can recognize right away that based upon the evidence that you're reading where that lines up and how that attacks the specific disadvantage. The third thing is that there's big impacts, right? So on this topic, there are a number of impacts that are germane really to kind of the transportation infrastructure and so on and so forth. For the politics disadvantage, there already are, if you can imagine, if Obama or Romney become president, how that affects the entire U.S. policy, the entire U.S. government, right? There were incredible differences between Bush and Obama and even Romney that really determined what our foreign policies were, what our domestic policies were, everywhere from health care to how the economy is being treated, and so on and so forth, that those impacts, the specific policies of those candidates are all become ground for impact, right? Something like the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, right, for nuclear testing, right? Obama's for it. That would be a possible impact. Something like Romney would try to overrule Obamacare, right? So there's possible impacts there. So pretty much you could, in all likelihood, draw an impact from just one statement made by a particular candidate on a particular day, right? So if Obama said that he wanted to pass the DREAM Act, which he said a couple weeks ago, which is an immigration policy, right? Based upon that one statement, there are a plethora of other impacts you could possibly be reading specific to the DREAM Act, specific to how immigration affects the United States, whether or not it's the economy, whether or not it's our job force, labor force, etc. So, as I said, really, any statement made by a particular candidate could be particularly germane in terms of the impacts you could possibly read. And that's why it's both good to be on top of the politics debate, on top of the election, because you could read a new impact conceivably every weekend based upon what was said or not said. Impact diversity. Again, as I said, really, this kind of ties into the big impacts, right? So if you go to Obama's campaign site or Romney's campaign site, they usually have an area for issues, right? And so each one of those issues are possible impacts. Right? So in the world that you want to debate healthcare, you can debate healthcare impact. You can debate anything with regard to each of the candidates' specific stances on foreign policy, whether or not it's relations with Russia, relations with China, how they want to treat trade, how they care about the environment or not, how they want to have regulations or not against CO2 or something of that nature. Those are all different impacts that you can read. The last is that it's fun and interesting and timely. I think it kind of spurs some activism for your candidate. I think most of you are probably not old enough to vote, but you probably have some sort of opinion about the election. It gives you an opportunity to really talk about the candidate that you want to support. It also gives you the exact opposite, right? You can always debate. You're obviously always debating both sides. So it helps spur that type of activism and gains the excitement, really, for the election and really having some sort of stake in terms of how the election ends up in November. The weaknesses of the elections assessment. This is both a strength and a weakness. Lots of updated evidence, right? You have to keep up with the election. You can't read uniqueness that Obama's going to win from last year, right? You're obviously going to be post-dated. If they have a piece of evidence from last week that says that Romney's going to win, at that point your disad has a large hole in it already. The whole narrative or thesis of your disadvantage now becomes less likely. It tends to take away from the overall topic. Given that it's an election year, did it really matter what the resolution was until November? Probably not. Right? So in most of the politics debates and most of the policy debates that you guys have, elections will probably be a staple part of what you will hear on either side. Either you'll be running it in one way, shape, or form, or you'll be answering it in one way, shape, or form. You need to be able to control the link narrative. Now, so what I mean by the link narrative is really just able to tell the story. And so this is really a critical part, really, of any negative strategy, is kind of the storytelling aspect of this. Right? So the link is the most important part here, right? Because in order to really win a good, viable link, it needs to be nuanced. There needs to be diversity of the link. And you need to obviously have a lot of qualified evidence. So in this world where you have the specifics of your evidence, you need to be able to tell the story. A good example of this is, if your argument is that Obama is good and the plan hurts Obama, right? So what you may want to do is extract the specific warrants of your evidence and have different arguments as to why the plan specifically hurts Obama. Whether or not it's a specific plan action that the public may not like, right? That's one sub-point of a story. The second part of that story could be, well, maybe one particular lobby group does not like what the plan does. Again, the lobby groups are critical to fundraising and advertising and so on and so forth. That's another part of the story that could affect the election, right? And so on and so forth. There could be specific states that will not like the plan, and that state is particularly critical to the election, right? So this is kind of the story that you need to tell, right? So a lot of times you may just hear one link, and I think that when a negative does that, they're doing a disservice really to the disside, because there's so many other different links that you can run. And really just understanding the narrative, and what I mean by the narrative is really the big picture, the link story, right? Because at the end of the day, it's the most important part. Because the disadvantage in itself needs to make sense to the